listening to the Adventuring Party for the first week of April 2022. This week, after nearly 700 episodes, the party explained how to start over from the beginning. The Adventuring Party, discussing tabletop and meta gaming the Irish way.
Welcome to the party. I'm Dave.
I'm Owen.
I'm Liam.
And I'm Shane.
And today we're talking about XP Disparity 2, starting over.
Wait, I thought we earned all of that great podcast time. Are you saying that it was all for nothing? And we have to start over from minute one and go grind away through the goblins of game design once again? This is unfair. This will not be tolerated. This game sucks. Cast. Never mind.
No, we're building on the foundation of what's gone before. But the details matter.
Yeah, so yeah, we have unresolved issues from our previous episode on sort of the person A gets more XP than person B because of how they play. Dave, you were the one who raised the topic, is that you sort of wanted to compare the classic by the book notion of when one character dies, you start over at level 1, versus the more modern approach of, well, a person at the exact same level just sort of comes in from off screen, and people go along with it.
Yeah, there's those are the two, generally accepted takes. There are others, but yeah, the classic take is, you've a new character, you're level 1. And as we touched on in various Gygax related episodes, the assumptions that underlay that tended to be, there's a giant pool of players. You're always going to have like other level 1 characters or level 2 or whatever to earn XP with, until you can get back up to where you were. And that's fine if that scenario works out for you. But in this day and age, you generally have the party, and like you're one of 3 or 4 or 5 or what have you. And if you're knocked down to level 1 and the rest of the party is at level 10, that introduces a bit of a problem, because modern RPGs, for better or worse, are generally balanced for a party of roughly similar level. So what are you to do?
Some of them did have like a bit of for me it was, I guess, a kind of a weak correcting mechanism, in that the XP scaled, like to go from first to second needed 1,000 XP, to go from second to third needed 3,000 XP, to go from, I don't recall the exact numbers, but basically every time you need to go to a level. So if you're with that level 10 party, assuming you survive one fight, you'll probably bump straight up to level 4.
Yeah, that's one solution.
It's not great, because you have to survive that one encounter, which isn't guaranteed.
Yeah, it does remind me of when I got roped into playing some World of Warcraft, and my much lower leveled sorcerer had to hang around fights close enough to be getting XP, while my partner in dungeon looting slaughtered everything, but not so close that they'd get splattered, and challenging enough.
It's the classic Mitchell and Webb sketch of BMX Bandit and Angel Summoner. I'll go over and I'll do an ollie and I'll do this and knock the machine guns out of their hands. It's like, or I could summon a horde of angels.
Take care of business.
Just hold this whistle, and if you get in trouble, blow the whistle, and an adult will come and help you.
Here's the thing, though, is that we talked about Gygax and his odd assumptions in our various episodes on the Tome of Gygax. But one of the big takeaways I have from that is that Gary Gygax did not have the same GMing situation that most other players on other GMs had. If Gary Gygax killed off a whole bunch of characters in a big TPK, and half those players say, this game is stupid, I'm never going to play again, this would not materially affect the number of games that Gary Gygax would be running that week. He would just get in another group of random wargamers from around Lake Geneva. They would be eager to come because they'd all heard about this game, and they'd all be eagerly make new first level characters, jump into the top level of Castle Greyhawk, and get killed by kobolds or whatever.
I mean, part of the whole reason why a lot of those older games and I guess I've been playing DCC a bit of late, and with that, it doesn't really matter. You got 3 characters. It doesn't matter if one of them dies. You just make another character, and okay, Chops the Butcher is now level 1. Hooray! Look, he's a cleric now. It doesn't. If you got 3 characters, it doesn't matter if one of them's coming back at level 1. You got your level 3 wizard, and you're now level 1 cleric, and it doesn't matter, But we've got one PC, and there's a massive disparity. And I guess with DCC, it really only caps out at level 5 anyway. You can go beyond it, but it's not really meant for that.
Yeah, Dungeons & Crawl Classics is sort of living in that thing where life is cheap, but everyone starts off with their 4 0-level mooks and see who gets it.
And it has that sliding scale of XP as well. So like for that the guys have been around since the start of level 4. And for them to get to level 5, the guys who were just being introduced on that, when those guys just went to level 4, will probably be level 3. Again, they make the jump to level 5,
The thing is, it depends on the type of game. If you play Pathfinder 2nd Ed and the party's 10th and you're 1st, you'll die to the first random AoE.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you'll be boomfed. Yeah, they might be able to keep you up somehow, but it's like, the game would be just like, just bring them in at level 10. Do not attempt to have them under leveled. It's a terrible idea.
You'll hit stuff at 20s and that's it.
Yeah, and it's like, don't.
And you won't even crit on a 20, you'll just hit on a 20.
And you might miss on a 20. There's times that you miss on a 20, if you're that low. So you just wouldn't. In some version of the 3.5, they'll accelerate your XP because you'll gain more XP for being in the fight. But again, you'll have to hide. A random fireball will kill you.
More survival for some than others.
Yeah. Alternatively, if you look at something like Call of Cthulhu, if you make a new character in Call of Cthulhu, yeah, whatever. Characters play for a year. He knows some spells. He knows a few more skills, but not a lot more skills.
My library use is 4 points higher.
But not a lot more skills. His sanity's a lot lower. You're grand. Fill him in. Some games you come in and like, yeah, you know what? I'm grand actually. I don't have maybe some of the tricks you guys have learned, but, whatever.
Also doesn't have the insanity built up either.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it depends on the game. There's games where XP and progression is very important. And, like, even in stuff like Wolfrup, where progression is very important, your wounds don't go up a huge amount. Unless you buy a particular talent.
Yeah, if you really jack one stat and get the right talents, yeah. I mean, it kind of goes up because you're going to have the money for better armor and stuff, which effectively means that your wounds are a lot higher.
So you're less likely to be catch it off around an AoE. You're less good. You're significantly less good in a lot of ways, but you're not the liability you would be as a level 1 character in a D&D party that are 10th level. Like if a GM brought in a 10th level party brought in new characters level 1, I question if the GM understood how the system worked.
Even a follower for a 10th level character's got to be 6th level,
Because it's just like, what are you doing? Nothing. I cast a magic missile. Pew.
Social encounters maybe for a few sessions.
Depends on the iteration of D&D as well, though. Like if you're looking at the current edition D&D, their skills aren't going to be that much higher because all you're looking at is the what's the basic stat, the basic plus that you had every proficiency bonus. That's the one. Thank you, Mom. Proficiency bonus goes up a little bit, from 1st to 3rd. But if you look at Pathfinder, 1st Ed, 3.5, 2nd Ed, or 1st Ed, the difference in skill modifier that a 1st level character is going to have compared to what a 10th level character is just means that any skill test that you have that would challenge a 10th level player, a 1st level player won't be able to accomplish unless they get exceptionally lucky with a roll.
And maybe not even then.
Also, why are you insisting they come into 1st level? Why can't it just be an experienced... this guy's an experienced fighter from XR. This is a powerful cleric who's been brought in because your goals are in line with the god of good. Bouncy Boo.
They've been attracted by by your reputation.
She has sent her skilled cleric to help you. Like, what Puritan nonsense is? No, you are not allowed to come in at level 10. You must learn your XP.
a kind of happy medium that I had with one 3.5 group that I had is that you came in at the lowest level -1. So if everybody was level 10, then your guy comes in at 9. So, okay, you were unlucky enough that somebody had died the previous session. You got a level. You got mostly 3 players in level 10, 1 at level 9. You come in at level 8, and after a few sessions, you kind of caught up anyway because of the sliding scale, and particularly if the player is missing a session or whatever, then you caught up.
Can I just say, as someone who handled that at one stage, even for me, that XP is a pain to calculate.
Yes.
It's a pain to the reason they got rid of it was like, you're literally going, okay, so the level 10 guys get 800 XP out of that fight. The level 9s get 1,100 XP, and the level 8s get 1,500. Don't forget to apply the penalty from not being the highest level in your favorite class as part of your multi-class.
Yeah, I think most people, and I think is what my GM did, was just calculated whatever it is based off the CR and then dished it out 5 ways. And the fact that it cost more to go from level 8 to level 9. Sorry, it cost more to go from 9 to 10 than it did from 8 to 9 was enough to make up for the jump rather than calculating different XP for everybody at different levels.
Yeah, for a different set of expectations, though, like kind of going off what Owen was said, if you look at the Traveller suite, like the game Traveller or any of the games based off the Cepheus engine, Traveller in Latin, like Hostile or Cepheus Deluxe or any of those, your starting characters are competent. They've about as much health as they're ever going to have, unless you're doing some weird surgery or something. And yeah, there's going to be a few differences in skills, but a fresh character, which you can, and this is one of the advantages of relying on starting characters as opposed to leveling them up, is they can be done quickly. Like, so if you say for Pathfinder 2 or a high level 5th ed character, you're probably not bashing out the character that quickly, especially if there's magic involved. So that is, I suppose, one advantage of pulling out a fresh starting character. And in games where a fresh starting character is actually quite competent and capable and able to contribute, that works. Not so much in games where it's balanced around you being a certain level and you need to come in around that level or else.
Yeah, there's like, as D&D's gone on, it's become between editions, it's become harder and harder to justify having even something like in a 4th level party having 1st level character come on, because as the CRs ramp up, so does AoE damage. The players using their own skills to figure out how to survive. It's now seen as an exploit in a computer game. Oh, if we stand right here, the goblins' AI will freeze. We'll be able to pick them off with arrows. It is sort of how it's seen now, because it's a lot of people don't like player skill intruding into the game world because it damages their versatility, whereas they would see like the character's abilities as being part of the world and therefore making more sense in a diegetic way, essentially.
That really depends on your table. Like if you're playing organized play or anything like that, you can't have people just go, well, I'm just going to invent extra powers that I don't have and gain an advantage from, because it's all locked in. You can't do that. The room for, I guess, creativity or whatever you'd say is a lot lower. I mean, if you got a player in your home campaign that wants to create water over somebody's head and, drown them, maybe, okay, fine, you do that. Maybe in an edition of a game where it doesn't specifically say it has to be created inside a container. You do that, but, they don't suffocate, they don't drown the guy, but maybe it distracts them and gives them a disadvantage or gives them a negative. Like, there's room for that kind of thing, but it really depends on your table. If your table's really about that kind of, off-the-cuff play and you do kind of fun and kooky stuff rather than straight up optimal tactical stuff.
Like, there's always room for someone being clever and doing something funky with a power. But often you have to go, okay, what is this 1st level spell slot doing that an 8th level spell slot can't do? I fill its lungs with seawater. Okay, is that what the spell does? It creates it anywhere. So now he's joking. I'm like, okay, but, like, It can't be just like a save versus death for a thing, or it has to be a really easy save versus death, or this is just way stronger than an equivalent 8th level spell. I applaud the creativity. I would let you distract him or something for a round, but like, he's not going to automatically kill the guy.
Yeah, give him disadvantage, or give him a roll to be disadvantaged, or give him a negative or something. But yeah, not insta kill, you know.
The other thing I would say is that Gygax's old solution for this is if your character died, they sold all his stuff, and your new character got the gold pieces worth. And because gold was XP, someone immediately went, "Oh, you were level 1. Oh, no, we sold your 14th level fighter stuff. You're coming as a wizard? Okay, now you're a 6th level wizard."
I remember a Warhammer 40k Black Crusade game I was in, towards the end of the campaign, it had been running a while. My character ascended into a chaos spawn, not his preferred outcome, circumstances. So he was out of the campaign. Well, he was an NPC, which comes up in a second. So my new character comes in. GM insists that this is going to have to be a starting Black Crusade character. I said, okay, fair enough. Like, Black Crusade characters start competent enough. I decide, right, he'll be a sniper. He won't get into the mix in melee. He might survive more than 5 minutes. So he shows up, actually looking for my previous character for vengeance reasons. And they say, yeah, he's in that room. And so my new character comes in. My old character is a giant golden blob of horror, and that results in a fight. New character survives said fight, and they say, yeah, okay, you'll do. And they point him on to the room of stuff they're not using, which included, like, unique power armor, an Exodus rifle taken from a slain temple assassin, and that level of gear. Like, so, and they just had this lying around who's going, I've made the right choice.
Yeah, or the trick that the original old school people had of sort of when there was XP for gold, they would just sort of give their spare gold to a character, and that would give them the XP to level up quickly. That sort of goes back into the old school dynamic of Gygax was much more in favor of the party as a temporary thing for this session, and assumed that each character would have their own objectives and own goals and their own desire to get to a certain level. But as RPGs propagated out and tried different things, the majority of people have found that it's simpler to have one consistent group, and thus they now have a resource that Gygax probably would have seen as sort of maybe a little bit unfair, of the players pooling their resources to build back up someone who has fallen afoul of random save or die or whatever.
You can't have a farmers co-op. We should all be trying to ruthlessly undermine each other.
I had an experience in Wolfrup, the new Wolfrup 4th Ed, where a player came in kind of halfway through the Enemy Within, joined the group, and they were on about, at that stage, because they played the Enemy Within and a bunch of side adventures, and they were on about 8,000 XP. And having 8,000 XP to spend in Wolfrup is totally overwhelming. So the new player came in and said, you come in at 0, but every session's everyone's getting about 100 XP. You're getting 500 XP a session until you're at the same XP as everybody else. And so you can still build your character organically, it's just accelerated. So he started out as effectively a 0 XP as apprentice wizard. But he leveled up quite quickly. He's like, I see I want that stat, and I want weapon skill, and I want intelligence, and now I want to buy extinctive diction. I get you. And he was perfectly competent by the end, because there's ones where if you gave someone 12,000 XP to build a character, it would look very different to a character someone built by playing week by week. So it got the kind of hybrid there of a week by week build with a lot of XP build.
Yeah, I could see that with Warfare particularly, because you look at some careers and some career jumps and you're like, oh man, the payoff for that would be great, but I'll be months getting that. Whereas if you just have a dump of XP, you'd be like, grand, yeah, I'll just do this, hop into this career, get these, grand, boom, jump back into this other career, and then...
Yeah, because, on the same family of games, Deathwatch, deals in tens of thousands of XP once you're, anyway into it. And if a new character comes in late in that, a quick way is just to start maxing out the stats, the attributes you care about, buy up any skills you want, and see from there. I actually really like that compromise solution, and I might borrow it for similar games in the future. Also, Deathwatch also has an interesting quirk with new characters. If your previous character died heroically, and the rest of the party retrieves their gene seed, your replacement character starts off with a attribute bonus.
Yeah, that's good.
Warframe has that with all humans have a doom. On their 8th birthday, a priest of war comes along and tells them how they're going to die. Usually in a fairly cryptic way, and if you die in line with that, then your new character has half XP.
Yeah, it's a neat trick, and it also kind of ties into the kind of the atmosphere that Warhammer 4E is portraying.
I just find it hilarious that on an 8-year-old's birthday, a weirdo priest turns up and shouts at them how they're going to die.
My favorite dooming is there's a random dooming table to roll on that's been printed in a few different books and some different versions. But I think the 100 is the priest points at you, suddenly clutches his chest and falls over dead. Oh, it's like, oh, that's your dooming. Ha! Don't know what to tell you.
It wasn't good.
Oh, just looping back to a thread on exploits, quite literally exploits. There's a hybrid 5e OSR game called Low Fantasy Gaming, which I've gotten quite fond of. And it actually has a section called Martial Exploits. It divides into minor exploits and major exploits. The minor ones, for a minor exploit to occur, the character has to first hit and cause damage as normal. But you get to do something like an opposed strength check to knock opponent off their feet, or an opposed dex check to throw sand in their eyes, temporarily blinding them for a round. If that fails, it can cause problems. You can't attempt other exploit against the same target until the circumstances change a fair bit. It could backfire. There are major exploits with larger effects, like spearing a T-Rex in an eye, causing it to get a mischance. But that's rougher if you don't succeed in it. And there's things called rescue exploits, where somebody's in trouble. You could pull them out of the fight. You could negate or reverse an effect that would otherwise do them a load of harm. But again, if that goes wrong, you're in trouble. And it makes interesting choices. And it also means, and I think this is quite clever, it means that lower level characters can still meaningfully contribute to a fight. The spindly person who's throwing sand at the enemies, like trying to blind them so the big hulking veterans can get in there and smack them, like that sort of thing. And it's actually a lot more forgiving for lower level characters in even fairly high level fights.
Yeah, there's a classic tales of First Ed D&D wizards who, instead of using their one spell a day, they would have a bag of lawn darts on their belt, and they would be throwing those at the goblins from behind the shield wall rather than using their magic. And that was how they would sort of help out while the rest of the party was sort of shepherding them through the low levels.
Shane, darts were a top tier weapon in old D&D. Darts were the best weapon. You remember that, right?
Oh yeah, because was this the there was a dart thrower kit.
You got to make more attacks than anything else, and because fighters had a flat bonus to damage with attacks, it was the most damage. Darts were top tier. And the other thing you could do was you'd render people helpless with some of your spells, and then just be like, okay, that guy's helpless, throw a dart at him. He's dead.
Yeah, beaten with one cruel blow, I believe they used the term in the video games.
Oh, sleep. They're all asleep. Cool. Dart dead. Dart dead. Dart dead.
As a rule of thumb, games where characters start, competent and capable, and aren't getting much more powerful over the course of the game, tend to be more forgiving on new characters coming in. That at least ones that don't take an hour to write up a character for, and also games which are, I suppose, more favourable towards characters coming up with lateral thinking solutions, like the two tower shields or creative use of powers, also tend to be more forgiving for lower level characters. So again, it depends on what you want. If you want a finely balanced tactical experience, Pathfinder 2nd Edition does it very nicely. I have a lot of fun with it. but there's only so much room for for coming up with lateral thinking in that game. I find anyway.
I was told a story of one of the players in another person's game was a fighter in, I think, first or second at D&D, or he's a wizard, and he used to wear plate armor. And I was like, but you can't cast spells. He's like, yeah, what he used to do was he would get the plate armor and he would build a Zimmer frame, and he would put the plate armor around the Zimmer frame and then push that. So he was surrounded the plate armor, and when he wanted to cast a spell, he used to stick his wand of fireballs out to the eye socket and fire it at people, otherwise benefiting from things like, people used to be led away with this kind of thing. He's like, yeah, back in the day, like, oh, this mouthful of water heals all wounds. Well, I'm just going to fill my mouth up with it, and I'm going to walk around, and when I get in trouble, I'll swallow it. Oh, the old days.
The first D&D campaign I played in was back in the day of Second Ed, and the GM had a bunch of house rules, and one of them was, if you were wearing bottles, bottles of healing potions, they will give you health back when they're shattered by enemy blows, but they'll only give you half the amount of health back because, broken glass is hitting you. And I thought that was a neat compromise.
It's the same with the Zimmer frame. Okay, you've got a move speed of 5 feet and you'll automatically fail any reflex save.
Absolutely. But that's stuff we've learned over the years. I mean, I think XP Disparity, some games where starting characters are mostly complete and there's very little progression, a new character is easy. It's like just make a new character. It's grand.
Yeah, if you play Twilight 2013, and I think in Twilight 2000... I haven't actually played the new Twilight 2000, but don't really... Like, learning a new skill is a long-term endeavour. Like, you need months of training. In which case, a new character is the same as an existing character, possibly better because you might have wounds and scars and stuff.
Alternatively, a highly level-gated game like a D&D or Pathfinder Second Ed, you might be useless or worse than useless, an active detriment, like, okay, well, just don't. That's the case. You have to cut your cloth. Some games with a robust progression but a reasonably competent start, maybe accelerated XP is the fix. Do it that way. I do know, like, you can also sometimes build a character who's kind of intended to die. At which point the GM is sort of like, well, we better have an idea for that. Like, if you play in Rifts or Rift Savage Worlds a juicer, if you play a juicer one way, your die comes up eventually. You fail that vigor roll or that the drugs roll, and your heart explodes. Eventually, it happens.
I think there was a similar thing in Savage Worlds, the superheroes one. They had I remember that guy who was playing Beast, but he had like a chest burster inside him, and we were in the middle of a boss battle, and he just that was the time he basically jumped on an enemy sword, and the brood hunter just burst out of his chest and started fighting us. And I remember that guy, Dave. Oh.
Yeah, oh no, he kept making characters who were intended to die in campaign, often to the detriment of the rest of the party. He got better for it, in fairness. When I was running my first Dark Heresy game, he was playing a Arbites, and in the last battle, he basically waded into the enemy just to draw them away from the others. And he was tough enough to take a lot of battering before he went down. Believe he's have some grenades before the end, but I or at least was throwing them around wildly. So, you had that.
There's also the whole thing of a character who retires. I've certainly had games where it was like, okay, well, my character is, okay, family was killed by this Dragon Blow cult. I want to get revenge on the cult. So, okay, I've wiped out this entire section of this cult. That's my arc done. I'm gonna retire the character. What do you do then? Do you get the same level of character? Well, in which case, what's the point in having my character narrative at all? I'll just keep playing the same guy, even though I've got no reason to keep doing this adventuring business.
It's a good question, and actually, it kind of ties into the theme with what happens if you finish, basically are done playing with a character. As in, I'm like even something as simple of I'm actually not enjoying this character. They're just not clicking with me the way I thought they would, mechanically or thematically or what have you. Again, depending on the game. You're starting at level 1 or you're starting at level 2 behind, you're bringing in a fresh character at the same level. It's a similar problem. very similar in its solutions.
The thing is, I think earlier game designers were more worried about disruptive players not getting punished for, say, sabotaging a group and dying in the middle of it, or something like that. And they felt, well, we have to get them to start at layer 1, because if we let them come back in at the same level, they'll never learn their lesson. And that was important to early game designers. But they were imagining a much more tournament-based, there's like 20 people, 6 play at a time kind of system, whereas most people are playing with the same consistent group, and that kind of problem is dealt with by adult conversation, not by mechanical incentives or disincentives.
I mean, in theory, the level -1 thing could be open to abuse. If the party if 3 people in the party are level 10, and there's a guy at level 8 and I'm at level 7 because we had a couple of deaths, and then the level 8 guy dies, there's no reason why the level 7 guy isn't throwing himself off a cliff.
Or just going, I'm done here, I'm retiring, I'm out. Like, there's a real... but at the same time, any player should be able to come to you and go, I'm not enjoying this, can I play something different? This sucks. Or I thought this would be cool, it's not cool, can I play something different? And that's a perfectly reasonable thing to do.
I certainly had that in a Twilight 2013 campaign where I was playing the farmer, and literally every time I went adventuring, I was like, we're going to starve to death. If I take even a minor wound, we're not making it through winter because we won't get enough food in, we're all going to starve to death. And I was able to retire the character, and he became an NPC. That was fine.
Or let's say somebody sees a thing in the storyline and goes, well, you know what really makes sense for it to happen here? My character to betray you all. So I'm going to betray him, but I don't want to do that and be a jerk. So I'm going to betray him and he's immediately going to become an NPC. GM can have a new character. Yeah, okay. You're like, all right, is there any bad feelings from the rest of the party about this? And they're like, we kind of want to kill that other guy. Yes. You okay as he comes in at the same level as you guys? You know what? Maybe we're not okay with that. I mean, there is a conversation that might need to be had there. I said, maybe we're not okay with him coming in at level 10 after his previous level 10 ass, stole the Jewel Scepter and joined up with the Chaos Lords. Maybe we're not okay with him being level 10. Maybe there's a little price on sticking the knife in our back. Even if it was the right thing to do.
Well, I mean, the first time he did it was okay, but the second time he did it, it left a sour taste. So the third time, I'm just not having it.
Completely unacceptable. But I mean, I've had players who've gotten bored halfway through a campaign and be like, I want to change my character. And I'm like, yeah, okay, we'll bring someone else in. And then your other one will... Because we had a game where 2 characters actually were like, I'm going to retire this character because he's too powerful, or I'm not having fun playing him. And then bring 2 new characters. And it's tough because they don't have the established narrative. And if you have something like Spirit of the Century, where everyone's backstories are tied together, and so does the new characters, like, okay, do you redo all the backstory stuff? Because we kind of have to. But at the same time, this is a new guy.
Or something like Apocalypse World, where you're supposed to, again, go around the table and say, I have this much history with this guy, and that much history with that guy. And that's a source of XP. Maxing out your history by having moments together.
A lot of games have, like, Traveller has different editions of Traveller have had it, and certainly have like a pool of party skills that get divvied out as well.
And loot is a huge factor in a new character as well. Loot's a huge factor. Stuff, because often you don't have anything. And how do you parcel it out? Is there a system or to figure out how much treasure somebody should have?
Is it liquidated and you get that much gold, or do you just take Dave the Paladin stuff even though you don't know how to use any of it?
Yeah, I think the only system that's had a guideline for that has been 3.5 and Pathfinder 1. And again, there's the question of, is that going to be exploitable because of, the previous character's loot?
Pathfinder 2nd Ed has as well. It's actually pretty simple, but you tend to miss out on... Consumables can be hard, because you've got a pool of money to spend on the consumables. You're like, oh, what do I buy? And I often found like, oh wow, because I started playing character because we converted from first ed to second ed and we bought all new gear because we can't convert the gear. We can convert the characters a little bit, but the gear we can't convert. And then I was looking at it going, oh, I got swallowed by an animal, and I was like, uh-oh. And there's where why it says, I'm not carrying a backup knife because I'm not carrying a backup knife. And this dagger I have is just a standard dagger. It's not going to cut through this. I should have a striking striking gauntlet, spike gauntlet, for punching my way out of being swallowed. But I don't, so I'm just stuck in here because I can't swing my bastard sword. And my punch can do enough damage, but it's bludgeoning and not piercing or slashing. So I'm stuck in here and I'm punching my way inside the beast dying, like going, I can't get out. Someone help.
I mean, this is the same peril you get with anybody making any advanced character. Like I recall playing one game where everybody made a 16th level character. We get into the first fight and we realize that the fighter does not have a ranged weapon. Never mind that a magic ranged weapon doesn't have a ranged weapon.
You know, because you had your picks and you picked your stuff, and I got the gear I needed, and I didn't put a pick into buying a backup weapon because I don't need a backup weapon.
There were some suboptimal choices there anyway. There was half plate, a long sword, and a short sword in Pathfinder First Ed. So a lot of suboptimal choices going on for character reasons. But no bow at all was certainly a questionable choice or lack thereof. The difference between a D6 and a D8 at level 16 is going to be significant, you know.
The other thing that comes to mind is that, you know, it's going to be different. You know, we always say it's going to be different groups, but it's specifically going to be different depending on the playstyle. Because, like, as you say, if you have a narrative style game, or your player or your GM is running this adventure path, and the plan is to go level 1 to 10, 1 to 12, whatever, that's a different dynamic than your sandbox game. Because a sandbox game can justify running into any number of people of any level, but maybe the adventure path has got a very limited pool of people who can conceivably even come in. Like, at a certain point, your campaign heads off to the pits of Hades to have a big punch-up with someone, you know, gets their soul sucked into the Doom prison or whatever, and there's no way to get it back out.
There's very few circumstances where you can't just... If the party are on board, you can do whatever you want. Like, they open up that X-ray open, there's a guy chained up there. Okay, maybe they're a traitor, or maybe they're a doppelganger, or whatever. But if the party, you know that when, okay, well, Shane's character died, well, we know that we're going to find a character for Shane there. You know, somehow that'll happen. Another adventure party comes along and you know, Shane rocks in going, hey, oh, right, yeah, well, my party all got wiped out bar me. Hey, can I tag along with you guys? Or there's a prisoner or whatever. You know, if the party are on board, you can do whatever you want. It's the same thing when we're all adventurers and we sit down at a pub and decide we're an adventuring party.
Our traditional, the words of greetings of our is traditionally, you look like a trustworthy fellow.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, you look like a trustworthy fellow. It's like, and that's it. They're in then. And that's our, you know, our little shibboleth, you know, and it also comes with a certain amount of expectations. You're not going to immediately try and stab us in the back, because we will accept that you're thinking. But it's nice to go, oh, this person. It's when there's gods in a setting. A great way to say is, God, my God sent me to help. I have a holy mission to come help you. That's a great trick. This is like, yep, you know, I'm here. God sent me a vision, told me to come here.
There's a certain amount of trust from that the party have given to the GM that it's like, okay, we're going to allow you this conceit of introducing this character. We're kind of expecting you not to shaft us. Yeah,
and it can happen, but what can be quite good for a sandbox setting even is, like, say, if there's an existing adventurers guild, or if you're hearing rumors of this mighty warband who have achieved great deeds, and one of them has a falling out with for reasons that your party are sympathetic with, as in they're not cool with slavery, you're not cool with slavery, and they want to meet. Like, that could be a great setup for a new character coming in. Like, and it fits into the world of what the characters have been doing. Like, I could see that.
Or if they've been working with factions, it could be a good reward to say at this point the faction has sent one of their champions. Now, again, it may be a little unfair to be making someone up from whole cloth. Oh, I thought these guys were just like a bunch of pay thieves. No, they've got a 7th level master assassin working for them. And now they're joining you. So it's like, oh, I wasn't expecting that when we accidentally fireballed them 3 levels ago, but okay.
You can even work it in, you know, that okay, Unsavory Joe has come in from said warband. Well, it turns out the previous leader, Jimmy Bob, was overthrown, and Unsavory Joe was in with Jimmy Bob, so he'd got to get out of there. But yeah, you guys need to confront this warband, and he's got a lot of intelligence on them, so yeah, they're definitely going to fit in real well.
I was had a funny experience with not exactly replacement characters, but sort of replacement characters in Dragonlance. There's a bit in Dragonlance when the party gets split up, And what we did was we went, okay, 3 characters go one way, 3 characters go the other way. There's a division that happens in the storyline. And so each of us, so my ranger, Cromhark, whose full name was Cromwell Alphonse Capone Harkonnen, was sent in one direction. And I went off with the other party, which is the cleric and the wizard and the rogue. So I said, okay, I'll make a lightning draconian paladin of Kiri Joloth, because the cleric's of Kiri Joloth. So I'll say, I'll come along to help. And my God sent me a message to come help you. And the cleric character enormously resented me for that. He's like, my God saying I can't handle this on my own, you had to come help. I was like, this is not the reaction I was expecting.
Yeah, that seems a bit much.
Yeah, funny guy. Was like, okay, cool. Well, we kind of played around with that a little bit. I was like, this was literally me going, here's some backup for you. I thought, that'll be cool. I'll back him up. I like the idea of a lightning draconian. I'll play a lightning draconian paladin of Kiri Joloth. And I'm like, yeah, well, I got your back, I'm like, a level 6 paladin with like 5 hit dice of lightning draconian, so I'm grand. Don't let me die. You don't want me to die. But other than that, it's all good. I explode with a chain lightning of, doing 11 dice to everybody around me,
So with that kind of player, maybe you want to be, my God sent me to learn from you.
Probably, but I thought these guys need a bit of muscle. And a paladin sounds like a bit of muscle, so I went along with that.
I remember I was in an all paladin party in a PvP game for Pathfinder, and there was a few cracks about Heaven's Wrecking Crew.
Mess stuff up. There's also games like Ars Magica which are hilarious because there's no attempt at balance at any point of it. If you bring in a new character, then you got a lot of catching up to do. But hey, my previous characters, and I've got my wizard, and they miscast a spell, and now they're going to be in Twilight for the next 10 years. Guess I should probably make a character for the interim then.
I remember a 3.5 game I was in where a deck of many things showed up. One of probably the most destructive item I've ever seen. And people start yanking cards out of it, and one of them had his soul taken by an extraplanar being, shoved into an extraplanar prison. So his body, we had to preserve his body, keep it alive while his, backup character rolls in, because, his main character is, divided, let's just say.
So does anybody have anything else to say? I think we've kind of gone through it well enough. It kind of varies by system, but...
Final thoughts?
If there's a big takeaway I feel people need to take away from this episode, it's that despite the many attempts for a system to put down the definitive truth of you must start at level 1, or no, bring someone in the same level, or start at half XP, or whatever, I don't think any one of these suggestions should be taken as anything more. This is what we think the game designers from our perspective think the game should do, and that's, an informed opinion. But ultimately, it's going to come down to what works for your group and the game you're running.
There's golden rules, right? You shouldn't be able to benefit by your character dying, because then that introduces, but even that introduces the temptation to cliff your character. But at the same time, it shouldn't be an act of detriment. It shouldn't be like, okay, maybe a slight decrease. Okay, fair enough. But it shouldn't be, act of punishment. You shouldn't be back to square one and be the guy standing in the back with a whistle because if you get hit, you're dead. I think those are the two rules. You can't, gain massive benefit from it, and you can't be at a massive detriment to it. And then after that, you really got to figure it out from your group as, say, do you do your, the average level -1? Do you bring them in at the same level? Okay, in terms of gear, is there a pre-built thing that, okay, well, there's the amount of gear that they come in with, or what? Or are you scrapping the gear from the previous character and giving them that amount? Once you stick to don't gain a massive benefit, but don't gain a massive penalty, I think you're in fairly good territory.
Yeah, but it's just like only so the system can only advise you so far. It is ultimately going to come down to what experience do you want your group to have, and if you do in fact want to have the start at level 1 experience, that's your call. That's the table's call. Everyone should have a little bit of input into it, but ultimately it's like the game cannot design your table for you. It can only advise. And
I would stick with the rule I tend to have, or what I tend to do with my groups anyway, is that kind of once you hit your 5th session, say, your character's locked in. You know, if you do bring in a new character, you do build a new character, particularly with something like where you might have had to build them up to level 10 or X thousand experience. Okay, we Owen had the suggestion there whereby they just go on a much higher XP scale when they're earning. That's a very good way of doing it. But if they were just building it all in one go, bam, I think you need to give them a couple of sessions to be able to tweak and adjust as they go along. And then maybe decisions aren't really set in stone until the 5th session. And maybe you have to retcon some stuff. But big whoop, you retcon some stuff. It's not a big deal.
As always, like, you should be trying to keep, as a GM, you should be trying to keep players engaged. As a player, you should be trying to engage with the setting. I mean, it's give and take there. Yeah, just, I suppose, to make sure that you're all on the same page, whatever you've decided on, like, not to have people with different expectations of, oh, my character's dead, and wait, we're coming in at level 0 and have to earn a class, and the rest of the party is level 16. This seems a little rough.
You're going to have to get creative with that side of beef you got a character creation.
Yeah, no, I think they're, like, regardless of what system you're using or what interpretation or what calls you're making, you need to give players a way to be engaged with the game, even if they're not like super powerful. Whether they're super powerful or not out the gate, if they can't do anything to meaningfully interact with the game, something has gone wrong.
Yeah, I think finding the point where they're not exactly as good as the character they're replacing, but they're not significantly worse, is the sort of sweet spot. Or maybe they'll eventually catch up, so they don't immediately come in the same. So it feels like the people who've been there all along have earned it a bit more, because they have earned more. But the other guys are not penalised so much so that they're an active detriment. Like, nobody wants to be babysitting a first level character, you know, if it's a level based game. No, exactly. People want to feel like, you know, their choices and decisions matter and had weight, but they also don't want someone to have, like, you know, okay, just don't do anything because you're gonna die immediately. So yeah.
All right, there might be a few more talks about XP and its consequences, but I think that's for another time. And right now, this party is over.
Thanks for listening to The Adventuring Party. You can find show notes and links to things we've mentioned at www.theadventuringparty.net and on our Facebook page. You can leave comments there, or talk to our Twitter account at AdventuringPTY, or you can record a voice message at www.speakpipe.com/theadventuringparty. We can also be contacted directly by email at party@theadventuringparty.net. If you'd like to be in touch with the party all the time, come join our Discord server, link in the show notes. The Adventuring Party is released under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share Alike 1.3 license.